The topic today is IT governance systems. These global pandemics do not stop IT governance. They really expose the need to change it. And a couple of things I think that are really important here when we talk about IT governance. I had a discussion with a client, this was probably about a week and a half ago, and they were going down the path of digital transformation and high velocity IT. And this executive said, oh, well, we're a high velocity IT environment. Those governance and assurance models, they're meaningless to us. And I really thought that's incredible that somebody would think that you could have a deployment style that is immune from a governance system. So that and many other topics similar to that are going to be coming up here in the next couple of slides. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the panel next. But first, you guys see, this is the last of the 3 webinars that we've done. And this is the IT governance system webinar. So let's talk about this. Hey guys, I'm sure you recognize most, if not all of my colleagues here today. We truly have a global panel for this series. And you can see we all have very specific, deep skills in each of their crafts. I was thinking about my opening remarks for today's panel, and it reminded me that just last week, I learned many things from many of my colleagues. And so I want to introduce them here, and I'll make this quick because I have a feeling that we have a lot of content to cover today. My name is Mark Thomas. I'm in Kansas, USA. I'll be your host and moderator for this event. Ramses is from Spain. What I remember from Ramses, he said last week, the book has been written. And I thought that was appropriate, not just in the last session, but it's appropriate to kick off this session as well. We've got Alan from London, UK. Whatever the subject, Alan always will say, and I agree with him, that it's paramount to know the critical business objectives and always invest in people's skills. I think that is awesome. Dirk, we have from Belgium. Now, Dirk couldn't make it last week, but he's definitely here this week. And this topic is governance systems. So, you know, like I said, frameworks will come up. And just so you guys know, we have the pleasure of having Dirk, the global expert on a framework you may all have heard of, and it's called COBIT. So we look forward to hearing from Dirk. Ed is from the USA. He's coming from Ohio. One of my favorite quotes from Ed so far, and it is appropriate for every one of these. He said, be prepared to defend the decisions you make during the pandemic. We have Veronica coming to us from Kenya. What she has said, which I really liked, she said, let us not forget fatigue risk. Our systems are stressed, our networks are stressed, and our users are stressed. So always think about that fatigue stress there. We have Alain coming to us. He's from France, but he's talking to us from the Ivory Coast. He made the critical suggestion that we must be keen to assigning the right responsibilities and accountabilities to the right roles, regardless of whether we're talking privacy, cybersecurity, or governance frameworks. Opiemi comes to us from Nigeria. I really like what Opiemi said last week. He stressed the culture of continual improvement. He said, if you are not intentionally improving, then you are unintentionally declining. Wow, great quote. Dr. Ramsey comes to us from Jordan. He's our cybersecurity guy, and he stresses that the risks and attacks are becoming more sophisticated. Therefore, our systems must be able to adapt to those. Next, we have Dina, also from the country of Jordan. What Dina was telling us last week, it's more important now than ever because we're working from home and our policies, our procedures, and our frameworks are more important now than they've ever been. And then finally, we have Kaya coming from Turkey. I've learned many things about governance in Turkey. Notably, last week, he told us about something called Patron companies. Never heard of this in my life. And how these can shape the landscape of a region's privacy and cybersecurity landscapes.
To restart, rebuild, and accelerate. In cybersecurity, privacy, governance, in a post-pandemic or pandemic epoch that we're living, restart, rebuild, and once this is done, boom, let's accelerate. 3 verbs for 3 fantastic webinars. Mark, it was a pleasure to be with you and with the rest of my colleagues that I want to hear right now. Thank you very much.
Look for those innovative opportunities for governance. Start with something small and scale. Invest in people, again, But what a wonderful opportunity to do COVID courses, the Sea Guide certification. You should be looking at investing in your people, but investing in yourself. And then finally, I said on the previous one, be nice to people, be nice to yourself as well.
Have one program for governance, cybersecurity, data privacy, and information security as well. This will reduce the cost, accelerate time toward compliancy, and avoid redundancy, especially now the budget for many enterprises is very critical and everybody is trying to reduce the cost. And so having a complete comprehensive roadmap is a great idea. So I urge everybody to do this alignment between these frameworks and standards and to get the maximum benefit.
Right now, business leaders, professionals, and so forth, they should be aware of the new realities that the business are in right now. So assemble the right stakeholders and verify their support. This will enable you have a better understanding of all your services and ensure transparency and accountability, because that will be key going forward. Consider the culture as you're trying to implement your governance system. You really have to, this is something that you really have to consider going forward. And then lastly, regardless of your role or your title in a company, getting your decision makers to see the value of IT governance requires you to speak the language they really understand. Because remember, IT governance is a necessity and it will always be a necessity. And our job as IT assurance professionals is to explain to the right people at the right time in the right way to ensure that the business value is attained. So continuously monitor your governance systems for adjustments.
I think the first thing to do is to identify and communicate what the organization's core business is. Second thing is enabling people in the organization to propose ways of addressing that. And the third thing is to measure everything, measure the way things are done, measure how they're done after innovations are being implemented. Feel free to throw stuff that doesn't work in the trash, and by all means, take stuff that does work and communicate it broadly across the enterprise so other people can use that innovation.
Go back to looking at tailoring your enterprise and do a lessons learned. Find out what went right and what went sideways. You want to recreate those wins and prevent yourself from reliving the past. Following that, understand that what was is no more. We have to understand and accept that the threat landscape has dramatically changed. And with that, so has our risk profile. We need to recalibrate to the I'm looking at Ramsey's when I say this, the next normal. Finally, as I have previously mentioned, follow the data. Understand where the data is going, where that information is flowing through now. As we've brought on more systems and had to accelerate to support a mobile and remote workforce, that data is in a lot of different places. It was brought up previously that the home user may be putting documents on Google or OneDrive or what have you. Find out where that data is and understand the implications that it's going to have. And again, this comes back to what I initially said with be prepared to be able to defend the decisions that you've made during the pandemic.
Everything you need to know is in a book. Like Ramsey said last week, the book has been written. So go to ISACA website, download COVID. Don't just download it, make sure that you read it. Don't just assume that you understand it. Probably try to take a test to validate your understanding. My second recommendation would be for you to analyze your environment, your organizational context, and ask yourself, what do we need to stop doing? Because that's very important. Not just the new things that you want to do. What are the things that you need to stop doing? Because that might be an opportunity for value creation. And then what else do you need to do more of at this time? And then finally, while you are leveraging the frameworks, leveraging all the standards, it's important for you to understand that customization and prioritization is the key to the game. You must understand that context matters, customize to the context of your organization, and learn to prioritize. Not everything is of equal importance. Pareto's rule should come to mind. 20% of your efforts will result in 80% of your results.
Think holistically. It means that IT is everywhere in the enterprise, and it's not definitely technological subject. So think holistically. The risks are everywhere, and means that IT should be the center of the issues for which the board of directors is accountable. Second one, as Ramses said, the books are already written. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. Leverage on sound frameworks such as COBIT, NIST. Never try to copy-paste what is written in these books. You could kill your company. So adapt generic knowledge to the specific case of your organization. And maybe the most important one, focus on people. INT is not a technical subject, it's a transversal subject, and put the focus on awareness training for all your staff. It's all about it's all about behaviors, skills, and competencies. This is the first point. IT is finally just a tool to enable the business people to create value. So don't put IT on the top of everything. INT is important, and focus on people.
3 tips, Mark. The first tip is to survive in pandemic environment and post-pandemic, our organization should continue to provide value and create benefits for our stakeholders. I encourage the organizations to review their IT governance system design and include cybersecurity and privacy as focus areas in that design. They are the most effective and sensitive areas in the post-pandemic environment. Tip number 2, focus on culture, ethics, and behavior components or enablers in the new tailored governance system. This component is now essential after the changes in the working environment and the habits due to the pandemic environment. Tip number 3, governance in crisis and after crisis is very critical and important. The crisis revealed the inherent risk among different domains in our organization. It revealed the limitation in our organization, the untouched capabilities of the IT governance. So based on that, consider proper setting and maintenance for the governance system to be enhanced both on the pandemic environment where we have experienced our challenges, strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, everyone.
Realize that there is a proven positive correlation between good governance and the performance of your enterprise as a whole. There are solid frameworks around, well, at least one, solid, agnostic of disruptive events that we know now, agnostic to the buzzword of the day, whether it's DevOps or whether it's digital transformation or whatever. A solid framework can deal with all of that. Don't be too much intimidated by all the buzzword generators that claim that your governance system is no longer valid, that governance is obsolete. They are wrong. A good governance system is always needed, and we have one at our hands, and it's free or very cheap and easy to use.
What we just did is we finished our capstone of 3 awesome webinars. We started with privacy, cybersecurity, and we just finished up with IT governance systems. Thanks for joining, and to the panelists, I thank you and humbly thank you for your kind information and spending time out there. Everybody, thanks for joining. We'll see you on the next thing we come up with.